Hello Bad Day HQers. Today we have the impossible task of counting down the top 10 worst car crashes. This is certainly a challenge for us as the topic is so broad we'd always miss some. The boss at BDHQ wanted us to do the topic, but we need your help. This is our top 10 vehicle disasters based on what we at Bad Day HQ thought were the worst. But we want to hear from you. Let us know in the comments below what crashes we've missed, and we'll do an updated video with all your suggestions. This list is not exhaustive, so tell us what we're missing and you could be featured for the follow-up. Number 10. M4 Motorway Crash, March 13th, 1991. The UK's M4 motorway is the main road connecting London to South Wales, and in 1991 it saw its most deadly accident to date. The day was very foggy and misty conditions made visibility very poor. Along the eastbound carriageway near Membury service station, a van driver claims to have been startled by a passing jackdaw, causing him to skid into the central reservation, though later it was reported he fell asleep at the wheel. A car following closely behind swiftly changed lanes to avoid contact, but other vehicles behind failed to avoid the van, also skidding into the other lanes. Some took evasive action and swerved into the hard shoulder until a large articulated lorry lost control after a hard brake, folding into itself and covering all three lanes of traffic. In a period of 19 seconds, 51 vehicles became involved in the pile-up. Fuel leakage from some of the vehicles and a series of explosions left a wreckage that had the carriageway closed for 4 days. In total, 25 people were seriously injured and 10 were killed. Number 9. Interstate 75 fog disaster. December 11th, 1990. The I-75 in the US runs through 6 separate states, the segment in Tennessee being the shortest, and also the site of an infamous disaster. On the 11th of December 1990, a 99-vehicle accident occurred during a day of extremely dense fog, obscuring the visibility of motorists. The accident began when a tractor slowed and was struck from behind by another tractor. Both were injured and exited their vehicles when another driver of a regular car collided with the second tractor, which was then in turn struck by a semi-truck. The impact started a fire which killed the occupants of the car and grew quickly to consume all nearby vehicles. The chaos spread across the lanes and even into the adjacent traffic. A passenger car slowed down to investigate the wreckage, and they were hit from behind, starting another chain reaction of vehicles colliding into one another. In total, 99 vehicles were engaged in collisions. Within minutes, rescue crews arrived, but already 12 people had died and 42 others were seriously injured. Number 8. M40 Minibus Crash, 18th of November 1993. Just after midnight, a minibus full of school children was driving home to Worcestershire after a trip to the Royal Albert Hall. Out of nowhere, the minibus veered suddenly into the rear of a motorway maintenance lorry, which was stationary on the hard shoulder. The men inside the maintenance lorry were mostly unharmed, and along with some passing motorists, managed to pull 7 children out of the wreckage before the emergency services arrived. Despite the rescue efforts, 12 of the 14 children aboard the minibus and their teacher all perished in the crash. In the aftermath, a pathologist revealed the driver at the time of the incident was either putting on or taking off her spectacles. Number 7. Uttar Pradesh, Pratapgarh, India, 19th of November 2020. Late on a Thursday night in mid-November, a car filled with at least 14 children and adults was returning from a wedding ceremony. The vehicle was speeding at roughly 40 miles an hour and collided with a parked truck on the road. Drivers of the stationary vehicle were dealing with a punctured tyre at the time of collision. The force of the impact was so great that half the car was rammed underneath it. All 14 occupants were killed, and it took over 2 hours to pull the car out from under the parked truck, allowing emergency responders to finally retrieve the bodies. The 6 children who died in the crash were aged 7 to 15. The recent accident has inspired a higher awareness of road speed limits in the region. November the 29th, 1991. In 1991, Interstate 5, situated north of the city of Coalinga in California, was hit by a large dust storm, causing a lethal series of accidents. The area is a major agricultural region and has historically suffered from dust storms. At the time, the valley was undergoing its 6th year of serious drought, causing unusually dusty and dry conditions. Fields along the valley were left unplanted during the season, which meant there was no barrier to the winds gathering dust. Intense gales blew dust onto the highway, blinding the unfortunate motorists. The dust caused 5 separate groups of accidents along the road, and a whopping 104 vehicles were involved in the disaster. Vehicles collided and caught fire, but the emergency services were unable to assist those affected due to the low visibility. When the dust had settled, 17 motorists had lost their lives, with a further 150 left injured. According to the California Highway Patrol, this was the deadliest accident of its kind in state history. Number 5. Tamanrasset, Algiers, 31st of December 2020. On New Year's Eve, near the town of Tamanrasset in Algeria, a transport vehicle of African nationals overturned. The town is near the country's southern border with Mali and Niger, and is a known transport route for illegal immigrants seeking passage to the Mediterranean. For unknown reasons, the large truck overturned and caused the death of 20 people, injuring 11 more. The roads in South Algeria are notoriously lethal, having seen more than 3,000 deaths in 2019 alone. Number 4. Fayetteville, North Carolina, 6th of June 1957. An accident occurred at a Y intersection in North Carolina when a tractor-trailer loaded with agri-foods crashed into a transport truck crammed with migrant workers. The impact shredded the cab of the farm truck, puncturing the fuel tank and igniting an intense inferno that one witness described as a ball of fire. 18 workers died at the scene, likely due to the sheer impact, rather than the ferocity of the flames. As emergency services began taking them to the hospital, a further 5 died, bringing the total death count to 21. Although the small truck was filled to the brim with workers, it was still under the legal road weight. Instead, a coroner's jury held on the 13th of June, just a week after the crash, named the 19-year-old driver as the culprit. Number 3. Carrollton Bus Collision, May 14th, 1988. On the 14th of May 1988, along Interstate 71 in Kentucky, a collision occurred involving a school bus used by a church youth group. The bus was filled with 66 passengers and was being driven by a part-time pastor of the church. The group left church in the morning and spent the day in the park until on the return journey, calamity struck. At 10:55 p.m, the bus collided almost head-on with a black Toyota pickup truck, which was travelling in the wrong lane. The driver of the pickup admitted that he had been drinking that evening, and the police found the 12-pack of beer stashed in the truck had several cans missing, indicating he had been drinking whilst at the wheel. This was the deadliest incident involving a drunk driver ever recorded in the US, with 27 fatalities in the accident. In the aftermath, several family members of victims became leaders in the Mothers Against Drunk Driving movement, one even becoming the organisation's national president. Number 2. Koala Bus Crash, September 17th, 1963. On the 17th of September 1963, a large freight train collided with a bus containing farm workers crossing a railroad in the Salinas Valley of California. The workers were returning home after a 10-hour shift harvesting celery and other vegetables when they came across a privately owned crossing over a single railway. The crossing was not marked by any lights, signs, or signals. A freight train from the Southern Pacific Railroad with 4 locomotives attached was travelling at high speed when the crew saw the bus and applied the emergency brake. The freight train smashed into the vehicle, and workers' bodies were strewn across the tracks, some reaching 100 feet from the impact. 23 died at the scene, and another 9 died en route to the hospital. It took 15 ambulances to carry away the victims. Number 1. Dibbles Bridge Coach Crash, 27th of May 1975. A coach carrying elderly passengers on a trip in Yorkshire in the north of England crashed travelling down a steep hill at Dibbles Bridge. The usual coach driver was absent and a stand-in coach driver missed a gear, quickly applying the brakes. The brakes had been serviced the week prior but were discovered to be defective due to improper maintenance. The brakes were insufficient to hold the coach, having completely worn away on the offside rear wheel. The vehicle began dangerously freewheeling down a 17-degree slope, crashing into a steel barrier and spinning into a local garden. The sides buckled inwards and the entire frame crumpled, killing 33 people inside. An inquest recorded a verdict of accidental death, as it was found the disaster was caused by the defective braking system. A pathologist reported that the cause of death for most of the victims was being crushed between the seats. Will you think twice before hitting the roads again? Let us know in the comments below and tell us what other top 10s you'd like to see in the future. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to Bad Day HQ.